No, they don't recognize me.
Oh, there, if you see yourself in the picture there, they'll see you at YouTube World.
So, they're live.
My day is coming. Halloween, I'm a skeleton. Yeah.
It's awful embarrassing.
Smile,
Ah, okay,
mm,
almost.
scenery, yeah. Alright.
7 o'clock.
Okay, it's good clock. That's the official clock.
That clock's a minute slow.
Thank you for coming. My name is Frank Richards. I am the president of the Board of Trustees of the Kennebec Water District. Welcome to the 2024 rate hearing, public hearing. I'd like to introduce my fellow trustee, Jeff Erickson, and Michael Talbot. Also, Amy Dyer, our finance director, and finally, our general manager, Roger Kraus. At this time, I'd like to turn the proceedings over to Roger.
All right, thanks, Frank. As we've mentioned here, we're streaming live, so people, one person can see us, I guess. But this will be recorded and it'll be available on the internet for anyone to view in the world. So we have a presentation that we'll step through here to start us off. So as Frank said, we're having a public hearing for our rate increase, proposed rate increases, and glad to have you here. And we'll at the end, there'll be an opportunity for you to come up, and if you want to say something to the board members, we'll have you. There's a sign-in sheet here to write your name and your address, so we get that recorded as to who came, and then you can share your thoughts or ask questions as appropriate. So we're going to talk about, we'll do some introductions. We already did some introductions, the timeline, public notification requirements. All of this process is governed by the Public Utilities Commission, and so we're going to follow the framework that they have for our rate increase and informing customers of their right for appeal or petition rather. And so we'll step through that. So as Frank introduced the 3 trustees that are here tonight, we have 10 total. They're listed here. So we won't go through any more introductions with that. And then staff that are here tonight, Amy and I. Amy's our finance manager and I'm the general manager. And then our technology person in the other room, making sure the streaming is working, is Matt Zetterman, who is doing a great job for us. Kennebec Water District, quasi-municipal entity formed by the legislature in 1899, so 125 years ago this year we were formed, and we serve Waterville, Winslow, Fairfield, Benton, and Vassalboro. And we get about 9,000 customers in those 5 communities, and then we wholesale water to Maine Water Company in Oakland. And so all the water that's served in Oakland is the water that we produce, but it's the distribution system there is owned by Maine Water Company. So financially, we're regulated by the Public Utilities Commission, just as CMP and other public utilities that are regulated, where it's the same regulatory process that we go through as they do. We are a consumer-owned utility, meaning that we're owned by our customers as opposed to an investor-owned utility. So our processes are a little different in those cases, in that regard, but it's still the same Public Utilities Commission that oversees our rate making. And then our water quality is regulated by the Maine CDC drinking water program. So all of our water testing is overseen by the main CDC drinking water program. And so if, just ground rules, if you want to speak to the board, we'll come up to the podium at the end here. We generally want to limit to 3 minutes, but since it's a small crowd, we still we don't want to go all day, but there's some latitude we'll exercise because of the smaller group here. And it's, as we've noted, it's being recorded and live on YouTube. So the process is governed by the PUC as far as public notification and submitting stuff to the records and documentation of the PUC. So on August 16th, we submitted a packet to the Public Utilities Commission and the Office of the Public Advocate for their review of what we're proposing here tonight. On August 29th, we sent out the mailer to all the customers, all the 9,000 customers. Got a notice in the mail. And then we've also posted information on our website, created a web page for this, and then posted on our Facebook page. And then we did an additional notice last week. And then this week today, it was in the newspaper. Amy Calder, who's a great reporter. She always does a good job with her articles. And she ran an article today. And of course, and then Thursday, the board will have a regular public board meeting that held on the first and third Thursdays of every month. But that board meeting, they will deliberate take into consideration any public comments that are heard, and they'll vote on the final rate increase amounts at that board meeting. That board meeting is also public. As all board meetings are. So the public is welcome to come to that as well and be recognized. But this is the time for public comment on the rate increase. And then we have from September 27th to October 17th to file our final rate package with the PUC. And then there's a petition opportunity for customers, and that petition deadline is October 17th. So, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And then anticipated the first step of the rate increase would go into effect on January 1st, 2025. So the reason we're doing these rate increases, there's several, just replacing agent infrastructure. It's very expensive to replace agent infrastructure. So the debt service on that and the capital costs on that. This building, when we did a rate increase 2 years ago, we had a public hearing in May of 2022. And we talked about, and that time we did 2 rate increases, one in July 1, 2022 and July 1, 2023. And we shared with the public that there would be a third rate increase associated with this building to cover the debt service of the building, in addition to the first 2 and it's collectively, it's all of the other costs. It wasn't just this building, wasn't the only reason for the rate increases. We had other debt service that needed to be taken care of, and other capital costs and other operational cost increases. But we were anticipating another rate increase back then associated with the debt service on this building. It just increased cost with inflation that has afflicted everybody. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the last increase was July 1st, 2023. So we're proposing a rate increase of 6% on January 1st, 2025, and then another one on January 1st, 2026, and 8% on January 1st, 2026. And so that, and rather than doing a rate increase, the trustees were originally proposing, staff had proposed doing a rate increase in the calendar year of 2024. The trustees made a decision that we'd move that to January 1st, 2025. So the additional revenue that we're going to generate from these 2 rate increases, the first one will generate additional $464,000, and the second one, this is on an annual number, the second one is $656,000 of additional revenue to cover operating costs and debt service and capital investments. Rate increase is the same for all customer classes. So whether you're a, single family home or a large apartment complex or Huhtamaki, the rate increase is the same. It's 6% and then 8% for everybody. We are creating a new bulk water rate. With the construction of this building, we did create a bulk water fill station here at the far end of the building that tanker trucks, mostly for filling pools, can access that water. Because we're a public utility, if we're selling water, we have to sell it on the rates that the PUC has approved. And so for this year, and for the 12 months that we've been in here, we could only sell it at the rate that we sold it to our water to any customer, which was $2 per 100 cubic feet. And so we, in order to, I guess, recoup the cost of that investment down there and make it a more appropriate cost, we've created a new standalone bulk water rate, which only applies to a very few customers that access water on that. But it's $50 for the first transaction, whether you get 20 gallons or 8,000 gallons, you pay $50, and then you pay $10 for every 1,000 gallons above 5,000. And so the first 5,000 gallons is covered by the $50, and then everything above that is $10 per 1,000 gallons. So this is a pretty big increase percentage-wise above what we're selling it now, but still an 8,000 gallon tanker truck spends $80 to fill it up. And so it's still a reasonable price. And that's what the board has decided, that having to recoup the investment of the infrastructure that's associated with the bulk fill station, we wanted to charge more than we do on our base rate that we sell to customers we're piping water to. So the impact on users, proposed rate increases are 6% and 8% cumulatively. So obviously the first step is 6%, but add 8% on top of 6% really is about 14.5%. So after the January 1st, 2026 rate goes into effect, the effective rate is a total of 14.5% increase. So the base rate right now, the minimum charge for a quarterly customer being paying quarterly, which is almost everybody, $78.93 is so what we call our 5/8 inch meter. That's our smallest meter. They pay a minimum of $78.93 per quarter. That goes up to $83.67 and then $90.36 in January 2026. And so trying to break that down into a typical single-family home, which just to give a sense of what that really costs per quarter, the typical single-family home pays about $105 now on a typical bill. It'll go up to it'll be about $111 a quarter in January, and then $120 per quarter in January 2026. So just to give a sense of what that is, you're paying $105 now, you'll probably be paying about $111 in 2025 and about $120 a quarter. So those are quarterly charges, not monthly. That's per quarter. Go ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt, just for clarification. In some of the coverage about the stepped increases, there was one announced as being planned for summer 24, but you said that one did not happen, right? That was the one that was deferred to 25?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think that might have been in the news article that was linked from the other article that was published today. Was the article that came out last summer, I think. So that was about a year ago. And so that was, we were anticipating that, but we delayed it. And so, if you just broke it down into, what does it cost per month? What's the net impact on a typical single family home per month? In January, you're paying about $2 more a month for the water service that you're having now. In January 2025 and January 2026, you're paying an additional about $3 more. So a net $5 more per month after these 2 rate increases go into effect for a typical single-family home. And then the usage, I referenced this when talking about the bulk rate, the usage charge. The minimum quarterly charge gives you 300 cubic feet within that minimum charge, and the additional 100 cubic feet on top of that, we're paying $2 a cubic foot now, $2 per 100 cubic foot usage, and that jumps up to $2.12 and then $2.29. So, and 100 cubic feet is about 750 gallons. And so for 750 gallons, right now you pay $2, and then it'll be $2.12 and then $2.29 in 2026. So public fire protection, that's about 15% of our revenue comes from public fire protection that the municipalities pay. And this is for the hydrants and the readiness to serve in case there is a fire, that those hydrants are charged. And so this is what they're paying now, and jumping all the way ahead to 2026, this is what the municipalities will be paying in 2026. And so just to give a sense, Waterville has about half our customers, and also about half of our hydrants are in Waterville too. And so they pay about half of the public fire protection charges. And so their $428,000 will go up to $486,000, so about a $60,000 increase on an annual basis for the city of Waterville, and then the other municipalities are shown there, or what they'll pay. And then just to give a sense of where some of the money is going in investment, we do borrow money, and we debt service on all of these. Actually, we use debt service. We also spend it on staff and equipment and other things, and just operational costs. But this building, this whole complex, is a $14.5 million project. And so that was obviously the biggest project we've done since we built our treatment plant, probably in 1993. And so having this facility, and obviously the debt service is not insignificant for that. The Kennebec Street, Lockwood Avenue in Waterville was a $700,000 project. The street, if you drive down Pleasant Street at all, you've seen that there's construction going on all summer. We're getting close to being done there. So hopefully we'll be wrapping up around the 1st of October on that project. And so that's great project. Interesting part to note on most of these projects, like in Pleasant Street, some of the Pleasant Street project we inherited when we took over the Waterville Water Company, some of that infrastructure. So it was pre-1900, and this is the first time the pipes have ever been replaced on that street in 125 years or 140 years or whatever it's been exactly. So if you're found disruptive to drive on Pleasant Street because of the water line replacement, just know that you'll be dead before the water line is replaced again. So guaranteed, we'll all be dead. So yeah, so it won't happen. We won't be on Pleasant Street again, but we will be on Summer Street next year, and Sanger and Boutel Streets. We anticipate the year in 2026. So, but as you can see, it's about $4 million a mile for pipe replacement, and so it gets very expensive. And we have been fortunate to get some grant dollars from the state on most of these projects, except for this building. We didn't have any grant dollars on that, but on our pipeline replacement projects, we do get 25 to 30% grant on those projects. All right, so the process that we're going through for a rate increase, you have the right to petition the PUC to investigate proposed changes. If you think the PUC needs to really look at the financials and really analyze this, there's petition process. And there is a petition forms, and you don't have to use this one exactly, but if you want us to make copies, we can make copies of this one, which just basically says, I want the PUC to look further into the rate increases, proposed rate increases of the Kennebec Water District, because I don't think they're using, investing their money wisely, or the rates are inappropriate, or whatever you think. You don't have to have a reason, but you want the PUC. And so it has to have the signatures, it has to have the signature, the printed name, and then the address of the person signing it. And one person, it has to be, it can't be, if there's 6 people living in a house, you can't have 6 people in the house sign this. It's one person per customer, service connection account. And I think, yeah, so I don't know if we said this here, but it's 15% of the customers or 1,000, whichever. Let me say this, read this. Petitions must contain signatures of 15% of the customers or 1,000 customers, whichever is less. So the 1,000, if someone really wants to have the PUC petition this, the need is to get 1,000 signatures, which is obviously a lot for anything, but that's the bar that the PUC has set. That's in statute. That's not something we created. That's something that the Public Utilities Commission or the legislature really created that. But you do have the right to contact the PUC if you have questions about the process, as well as the Office of the Public Advocate. The Office of the Public Advocate is independent of the PUC, and they review our rate case request also. But if you have specific things that you want to go to the Public Advocate about, you can as well. And so, and then, here's the 1,000 customers slide here. And so if there's information that the PUC says we need more information about ABC, we will give that to the PUC and to anyone, actually, because we're a public entity, and everything we have essentially, barring those few things that would be confidential, like personnel records, are available to the public at any time. And so, as said earlier, the first rate increase goes into effect January 1st, 2025, and the second one January 1st, 2026. Presuming the trustees vote to maintain those proposed rate increases on Thursday. And now is the time for public comment. So feel free to come up and share your thoughts. And if you could write your name down, that would be great. So we just have a record of who came. And I'm actually going to stop sharing this.
I'm not sure.
I think I have to.
Sure.
Okay. No, I feel like I have to do this first. Amy Murphy. And I'm in Waterville. My real question is, it doesn't seem that your increases are going to raise much revenue. But my real question is, I'm thinking about in 2027, we need to start thinking about PFAS. You built this new facility, and I'm wondering, how much rates are going to really increase each year? So are they going to be going up 8% each year? And I go to city council meetings, I hear a lot of people in Waterville really having a hard time with increases this year. Although it doesn't seem like there's that much per month on this, but everything is making a big difference in their lives. So I guess I'm just thinking about the citizens of Waterville, seeing the increases in their state, and their taxes everywhere. How this is going to progress. Is it going to be 8%, 6% every year? It just seems like a lot.
Yeah, so I don't know, do you want me to?
Okay, this is primarily inflation driven. If inflation, as you may know, has decreased markedly. If that blessed trend continues, rates won't go up much beyond inflation. But it's very hard to predict that. But that is, even though there's no direct cause and effect, that's what correlates with our rate increases.
So is it inflation for materials or for salaries? Is that where more of it is coming from?
Everything. It's very hard to break it out.
Yeah, materials have increased quite a bit in the last, probably 5 years?
Materials for everything is increased. Yeah, I understand that.
Right.
But I'm just concerned that, like, so is this new facility prepared at all for what we're gonna have to deal with lowering by half of the PFAS?
Yeah, so two good questions
Sorry.
there that are somewhat related. So first, in the budget projections, we aren't sharing budget projections here, but our budget projections for the future beyond these two-step increases is a 3 to 5% increase every year. And that, there's a lot of factors that will go into that, but no firm decision has been made beyond the 8%, of course. But the need to maintain regular investment in the infrastructure, the industry standard is to replace 1% of your infrastructure, your buried infrastructure a year. And so with 152 miles of pipe, it's about 1.5 miles. And you can see like on Summer Street is right around 1 mile of pipe, so that, which is less than 1.5 miles. It was not 1%. And so and our projections, as we've deliberated, the board has deliberated this, and staff has presented information to the board, we're not trying to get to 1% anytime soon. So we're trying to be at the, point, about 2/3% of water main replacement a year. And so in order to maintain that, we need to raise rates 3 to 5% every year to keep up with that. So PFAS, really great question. So this building has nothing to do with water treatment. This is just housing staff and equipment and materials to go out and manage 152 miles of pipe and tanks and pump stations and all the other infrastructure that we have. This is really about, we left South Street because South Street was completely inadequate for our needs, and invested money into South Street would have been a mistake because we could never make that site meet our needs ever because it was just such a small site. So this site becomes the next 125-year site for us. So there was a real need to find a better site that we could operate out of for staff and equipment. And so that decision was made because we needed to make an investment in operational facilities, and that site didn't work. This site became a great site for us. So so our China Lake has PFAS levels. I'll hone in on, there's 8,000 PFAS compounds or something. It varies from 6,000 to 12,000, depending on who's talking about it. But there's only 6 that are really regulated. And PFOA is the compound that we have in China Lake that is of a regulatory concern. And the regulatory limit is 4 parts per trillion. Our levels in China Lake range from about 3.5 to 6 parts per trillion. So we're right on the edge of the regulatory standard for PFAS. And so we've already commissioned one study that we did with, what do we call that?
Smith.
We hired a consultant to do a study for us that just at a very high level, what are some options? And we got a grant to cover that. We did the next phase that we're doing right now. We started in March. We replaced our treatment process, removes turbidity and total organic carbon, like particles in the lake, that need to be removed. That filters are carbon-based, they're carbon filters. And so carbon will remove PFAS, but old carbon won't remove PFAS. But old carbon, older, it's only 2017, it will remove total organic carbon and turbidity. So the filters are working great for the things that we designed the plant for, but it's not removing any PFAS. So we've replaced the carbon in 2 of the filters, 2 of the 6 filters, to see if our gravity filters could work to remove PFAS. And they are removing PFAS now. The filters are having levels below detection limits. So the detection limit's about 2 parts per trillion. And so it's working quite well, but it's how long that'll last, because it was $250,000 to put carbon into 2 filters. And so if we have to replace 6 filters, we're at, $750,000 a year, and that's a significant operational cost that, we don't want our ratepayers to bear. And so we're also starting another study with our consultant to look at a different kind of treatment, would be called a pressure vessel with carbon, to remove PFAS as well. And so that's just getting going. So we got a $500,000 grant to cover these first parts and some of the second part. We're getting a $4 million grant we've been awarded. And then we're applying for another $4 million grant because the high level estimate for if we go to a pressure vessel, we have to expand the plant or build a new building, could be up to $18 million for this new treatment facility. And so $4 million doesn't seem like a lot when you're trying to get to 18 million. And so, but so this is very much in flux. We don't know what the long-term solution will be on that. But we're doing our best to gather as much grant dollars as we can, so minimize ratepayer impact. But unless something happens nationally on the regulatory standard, we are going to have to treat for PFAS, and that's going to be, the gravity filter method that we're piloting now was a hopeful option, but not a likely option. But we do access grant dollars to try that out, to know that whether it works or not. The more likely option is expansion of the plant and these pressure vessels. But we're starting this study with CDM Smith, who's our consultant, to really analyze that in much more detail. So we figure out what's the best option, because there's the upfront cost and then there's an operational cost. And if the operational cost is like $750,000 a year, that a capital investment may be better, because the operational cost will be significantly less. And particularly how much grant we get will also factor in there as well. So long answer.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Yes. So anyone else that would like to come up and share their thoughts?
Just hard out there.
Yeah,
Right? It's just hard out there.
I will say, as a trustee, and I believe most of the board will agree with this, we don't want to get ourselves into a situation where we're not replacing infrastructure in a timely fashion, and we let the system rot. That's bad. Okay, if you don't raise rates, that's what's going to happen. And we also do not want to get ourselves in the situation where we don't raise rates and years go by and then suddenly, boom, we hit somebody with a 40% rate increase. We don't want to do that either. Maybe what we're doing is death by 1,000 cuts, but we're hoping to be more rational about it. So.
Just want to make sure.
It's definitely appreciative that you guys are being upfront and honest about it, right? Not many companies are doing that nowadays as to inflation, I'm only 20, right, having to deal with this. So luckily, your guys' increases aren't as drastic as some other companies have been, but the fact that you're willing to explain where you're going to put that infrastructure is definitely helpful to know that the money's going to go to the right place to actually help the townspeople and protect them from things in the water.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. You definitely answered all my questions, though.
Great.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all for coming.
Well, just to make sure even though you didn't say anything, if you could write your name down, that would be helpful for our records for the PUC, because we have to submit that to the PUC, just so they have some record of who came and that we officially had a public hearing.
I'm sorry, more people don't come. That seems to be what
Want
happens in
one
the city.
household?
That's fine. All right.
Get the hat, whoever's had it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Glasses. You must be intelligent, you're left-handed like me.